professor at the English department of the University of Graz, and my interest in Canadian studies was sparked in the late 1990s through one of my professors here in Graz, Franz Karl Stanzel. When he retired, my husband and I more or less inherited this field from him. At that time, there was also a major support from Canada regarding Canadian studies centers outside of Canada, which also led to the foundation of Canadian studies centers all over Europe and also at the University of Graz in 1999. And this center, of course, again, in turn, resulted in numerous conferences and publications. Ever since Canadian literature and culture have been a major focus in both my research and my teaching, specializing in particular on the Canadian short story. In addition to numerous book chapters and articles in journals and edited books, I published a monograph, as Anna has already said, on the contemporary Canadian short story in Canada, 2014, followed in 2023 by the Routledge Introduction to the Canadian Short Story in 2023. The fact that Canadian literature has also played a major role in my teaching for the past 25 years or so has resulted in dozens of master's and doctoral theses on Canadian literature, which I supervised. An intriguing aspect about Canadian literature and culture is its astounding diversity. In addition to regional idiosyncrasies, there is this vibrant and cross-fertilizing mesh of different voices, and how these establish their own distinct impact while at the same time interrelating is a fascinating dimension within Canadian studies. Advice for students or emerging scholars is difficult because it depends on the respective research focus. But what is definitely important is to find a good balance between having a solid overview of Canadian history, culture, politics, etc., and specializing in a distinct subfield. So what can be observed in all research fields also applies to Canadian studies. The disciplines become more and more diversified, and the bulk of what is published each year is overwhelming. It is therefore necessary and indispensable, actually, to find a niche where you can really develop an expertise. Even in a relatively contained field such as Canadian short fiction, it is difficult to keep track of everything. So, for example, in my recent research, I have more closely engaged with the genre in regard to environmental issues, thereby being able to bring together two fields of my expertise, Canadian studies on the one hand and eco-criticism on the other. What is lamentable, though, is that the support for Canadian studies centers and activities has drastically waned. If I look back at my own development as a Canadian studies person, a program that really helped me a lot was the faculty enrichment program, which was granted by the Canadian Embassy, but they have now, it does not exist anymore. And I participated in it. In 2005, I could travel to Canada, meet authors and scholars and so on and so forth. And I think that is an important support that students, emerging scholars in the field would need or could massively profit on. Thank you.